Hey everybody, we are back here in the home lab. It has been a while. And a lot of that's because my home lab has really just been working really well. And I've been kind of content with where it was. So for the longest time, I've been running one Dell host with VMware, vCenter 7. And since then, vCenter 8 has actually been out for quite a while. I just haven't gotten around to upgrading, but it's time and I'm ready. So what I'm doing here, I have a second Dell server, identical hardware specs that I've now installed ESXi 8 on. And what I'm going to do is upgrade my vCenter 7 that's running on my current lab host. I'm going to use the existing one to upgrade to 8 and target that onto the new one with the idea of bringing everything over onto the new one. I've never actually done this process before, so this should be kind of fun. It's kind of the whole point of having this lab is to try things out I've never tried before. So I've done a lot of generic fresh installs, thought about doing that again, but figured I'd try something a little different just to see what the process is like. Now, I've already been through this, kind of went down this path a little bit before I started the video and realized I had some permissions issues. You need to have the root account on the vCenter, the original vCenter that you're copying from, and I had a problem with that. So I was able to use my administrator at vcenter.local account password in SSH right on the command line into vCenter in order to change the root password on vCenter. And I think it's just a problem where it basically expires. If you don't use, I don't use root very often. And if you don't use it every so often or change the password every so often, it basically expires and you have to change it again. But that's not a problem as long as you know your administrator password. So just to kind of catch everybody up here, what I've done is I'm a VMUG subscriber. And really, if you're going to be using VMware in the home lab, either for educational purposes or just to kind of run your home stuff. Super great deal. $200 a year gives you access to basically everything VMware has to offer. And so I've downloaded a bunch of the stuff that's available there, and I'm running this VMware VCSA 8.0. So I mounted that, and that is mounted here, and deep inside here is the UI installer Win32, and I ran this installer. So that is where we're looking at here. So let's go ahead and click upgrade. And oh, great, it actually left all the details, so I don't have to fill these in again from the previous time I went through. So my current vCenter 7.0 whatever is .30 here. And here's the root password that I had wrong before. So that should be what I made it. And then this is the host of that is running vCenter. So again, the original host that's running vCenter, and that's is all the passwords for that. And of course, I'm trusting the fingerprint. Not that I ever check. All right. So now the target is what we want. So let's take a look. This is going to be 10.0.0.31. And let's see, let me think about this. I just made this. So what did I make it? This is a great question. Let's see if this works. I hadn't gotten this far yet, so I don't actually know. Huh, I guess that's what I made it. All right, so VM name. I tend to like to make these DMRC, just kind of little pretext I put on my lab stuff. Underscore, and then I think I currently have the other one named. Do I have it here? I'm looking at another screen that I'm not going to show you, but it really doesn't matter. I typically give it some fancy name like util01 or something like that, but for the lab, I'm going to call it vCenter. I don't even need an 01 because there's not going to be a vCenter 02. So I'm just going to call it vCenter. I have a hard time. I just have to put a number after it. It's the syntax I like to use. So we're good with that. All right, let me pull this back up. All right. And now I get to set a root password. Right, good with that. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so I always do a tiny because let's be honest here, right? Um, if it's going to limit me up to 10 hosts, I'm actually pretty good there. I do tend to have almost just over 10 hosts. Let's see, what would a small be? I've never done a small before. So vCenter would require then 21 gigs of RAM and 4. It's interesting. It was just complaining that it was low on RAM. I don't really mind. I've got the storage bothers me. The other specs don't. So I'm actually going to do a small this time. But what I do, because the storage really bothers me, this is almost all of my storage. Once I deploy vCenter, then I do a storage migration to thin provisioned, and then it frees up 90% of that storage. So that's not going to bother me because I've only got about 800 gigs total on this host, and that's all I need for my environment, as long as vCenter isn't using it all up. So let's do that for now. All right. And there you can see it free. Ooh, 659. Let's go back a second. 694. It's saying, so that shows the reality of the situation there. This is new. Okay. I didn't know you could do this. I don't think this was an option in 7. Enable thin disk mode, or at least if it was an option before, I missed it. So now I don't have to do that little storage migration to thin trick. I can just do it right here. Interesting. Yeah, thin provision supported. Cool. All right, network, VM network, IP, static, temporary IP address. So that's interesting that it's saying temporary. I think this is temporary because as part of, right, this is a migration, it's probably going to set it to what my current vCenter is, which is what I would hope. So I know this one's available. And that's the prefix, and then 10.0.0.1 and 10.0.0.1 is my DNS. So that should all be good. All right, here we go. So this is probably going to take some time. And what I think I will do is pause. I wonder if I can pause. I'm doing this YouTube live primarily just because it's the easiest way to record things these days. I'm going to see if I can pause this so that we don't have to just sit through all of this. Otherwise, I'll just edit it out of the recording later. All right, upgrade stage 1, deploy vCenter server. You've successfully deployed vCenter server. To proceed with stage 2, click continue. All right, let's continue. All right, what's going to happen? Upgrade to 8. So the second stage completes the upgrade by copying data from the source to the deployed. All right, let's do it. All right, what do we got here? Integrated Windows authentication will be depreciated. I'm not using that. Make sure the cluster where this EXI host resides is not sent by fully automated. I don't have fully automated DRS turned on, but let me go double check. So here's my cluster for the existing, and let me bring this into view here. So here's my existing, right, 7.0 server. Here's the cluster. And what do you go to? Configure, DRS, edit, right? It's turned off. And you can see it right there. It's turned off. Availability, turned off. I don't tend to use this stuff because my environment is so small. So I'm good there. And then files that cannot be used with the Lifecycle Manager 8 will not be copied. That shouldn't be a problem. Not worried about that. And then vCenter server has extensions registered that cannot be upgraded or may not work with the new vCenter. Interesting. I don't know what that means, but I don't think it's going to apply to me. So I'm going to go ahead. All right. Select an upgrade. Copy. What kind of data? Configuration and inventory. Ooh, downtime 1 hour, 7 minutes. All right. Configuration, inventory, tasks, and events. So it's a little bit bigger, and performance metrics. Right now, I don't care about historical. In this situation, I don't care about all this historical stuff. So I'm just going to take the bare minimum. Configure CEIP. Oh, Customer Experience Improvement Program. No thanks. I don't need to be a part of that. Ready to complete. I have backed up the source vCenter and all the required data from the database. I have not, but let's pretend that I have. I wonder what's going to happen if it goes bad. Let's see. I'll do a snapshot on it really quick because that's kind of like a backup, right? Snapshots. Take a snapshot. Do not include, do not QES, create. So now if things go really wrong, I'll just revert to this snapshot. All right. Finish. Okay, the source vCenter will be shut down. That makes sense. Okay. So now supposedly this is going to take 1 hour and 7 minutes. I sure hope not, but I guess I'll find out. And just like with the other, right, stage 1, I'll just edit this from the final video. But again, if anybody has any questions while we're waiting here, feel free to drop them in the live chat. I'll check occasionally. Something I had forgotten and just took care of while I'm waiting here is the networking configuration needs to match on the hosts, especially in my case because I run my pfSense router virtually on my host. So this is my original. I have a LAN connection, the management network. The lab I don't use anymore. I have no VMs on it. So I'm gonna leave that off the new one. And then public DMZ and WAN, all part of my pfSense deployment. So I mirrored these on the new hardware exactly. So virtual switches that map to the exact same virtual NICs, right? VM NICs, because the hardware is identical. It's really easy to match them up. And then I have them all plugged in to switch VLANs that have shared, that all share the networking. So I'm not sure if it's going to work as smooth as I expect. And I did have the original one LAN named LAN, and here it was named management network, or what was it named? I can't remember now, but it was named something else. And so I just named it LAN. I hope changing that in the middle of this migration is not going to cause too many issues, but I think it would be better before we get to the import copy data stage for the network names to match the source and destination. I think that would be a better situation than not. So I guess we'll find out here. Probably should have done all that beforehand, but it's as good as it can be for right now. All right, so far so good. We've reached the last stage here, or the last step of stage 2. I don't know if this is stage 3. And it's importing data, so I think this is going to be done relatively soon here, and we'll see if it works. So I can bring up the console like I did before, and now the, hang on, let me bring up the remote console. And you can see that vCenter 8 is running now, and there's the 4 CPUs, 20 gigs of RAM. I might be able to actually bring up this website. Let's see. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's probably not in a great stage right now. All right, this is it. Let's see if it even lets me log in its current state. Oh, it does. Interesting. Well, it's complaining about all sorts of stuff. And my licensing is going to be all wrong. It was all 7 licensing, and it was actually about to expire before anyway. Let's see. Oh, and there's all my VMs on 33. So it brought over the host, the original. This is the old host, right? This is going to be a 7.0 host. So it didn't move any VMs over. It left the VMs where they are, which makes sense because they're not on centralized storage. They're on local storage. So that would be a big deal to move all these. But it left them where they are and brought over all the configurations. It did not, because and this is kind of confusing, right? Because the new host, the 31, was not in the cluster before. It's not currently part of the cluster that's running the vCenter that it's on, but that's not strictly required. And that's easy to add. So once this is done, I'll add the new host to the cluster, and then I can start. It should be pretty simple. I can then start storage vMotioning my servers over to the new one. I think I'll have enough room for everything if I do it in a thin provisioned fashion. And then I can see what I want to do with the original host, right? It's not, I'll probably just reinstall. Maybe I've never done an upgrade. I've always just reinstalled ESXi, which is kind of the cleanest path, but maybe I'll look at doing an upgrade as part of this process too, to see what that's like. But so far, it's actually looking really good. And I imagine, let's take another look while we're waiting here, that this has been powered down, because it said it was going to power it down when it was done. And there it is, powered off. So the old vCenter is now offline, and the new vCenter is now online. So that went really smooth. Let's take a look at where we're at. Everything seems to be successful. Oh, and it has changed the vCenter IP back away from the temporary one, right? It said it was temporary. So if we look, and that actually, right, so this is probably dead. Yep, that IP is dead. Cool. So if we just go to 30, then we've got, so this is actually really slick. I mean, it just worked so well. I don't care about any of those warnings. I'll fix the licensing later, but I now have this. So let's go ahead and finish. Let's finish this. I don't think there's anything to finish. Yeah, you close and it's done. And so let's take a closer look at this. So here's my pfSense server. There's TrueNAS. I'm not running. A lot of this stuff's powered off right now. And then just a utility server that runs some little VMs. So I want to add I feel like to finish this off, I want to add the final host into this. And I think I'd rather do it. You can do it here, right click add host. I've had problems with that before. I don't know why it's different, but I've had better luck doing it here, add hosts. And let's see what happens when we do this 10.0.0.31. I think I just do next. Oh, and there it is. There's the thumbprint. That's what I want. One host warning. What's it going to tell me? All right. Has one powered on VLAN. Okay. So this is great because it's bringing in all the same networks in theory, a different data store where that's fine. So let's see what this does. Finish. Okay. So it's not in the cluster yet, but it should show up there in a few seconds. It's got to do its thing. All right. And there it is. So I kind of have an IP scheme going here, right? So .30 is my vCenter, and then in the .30 range would be my host, right? 31, 32, 33. And I'm kind of bouncing around as I play with different hosts. At one point, I had 4 hosts. I've never had more than that, though. But I'm down to 2 right now, and I'm probably not going to keep both powered on at all times because they are kind of, right? These are Dell PowerEdge 720s. They are kind of power hungry, and I just don't need them both powered on. I like to have them both ready to go and configured so that when I want to do maintenance on one, I'll power on one, migrate over to it, do the maintenance, and then migrate back and do the maintenance on the other. So I like to keep them both up to date, primarily because I run pfSense off of these, right? Virtualized router for a home with 6 people, and it ends up making this more like a production environment than not. So this is my home lab, but it's really my home network that I also use as a home lab. So, yeah, this is going really well. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I'd never done this. I never even looked at documentation or anybody's notes on how to do this. And it worked really, really well. So I'm going to go about the process of doing some storage migrations and moving some of these non-essential ones over, see how that goes. And if that goes smooth, then I'll bring over, the really essential one, which is pfSense. And that's that. So that's all I have for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I'll be posting some more stuff as I get back into some more playing around my home lab a little bit more. Hopefully I'll have some more stuff for you. Anything you want to see or have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to them. Thanks for watching.